Greetings, friends. This video is meant to put Karunka V in perspective, specifically in Canada, although you could use this, with some relevance in the United States. I have here the Statistics Canada information on leading causes of death, total population by age group, but of course it's just showing here all ages summed together here. Now I could break it down by all these different segments, but that would take a long time. That would be very complicated. So we're just going to look at the overall deaths by the top leading causes of death as we have in this table here. And as you can see in this column, right here we have 2014, and then it goes 2015, 16, 17, and 18. They don't have the data for 2019 yet. And the top causes of death are malignant neoplasms, which is basically a form of cancer, and then diabetes, Alzheimer's, diseases of the heart, cerebrovascular diseases, influenza and pneumonia, chronic lower respiratory diseases, chronic liver disease and cirrhosis, nephritis, nephrotic syndrome, and nephrosis. That has to do with kidney problems. And then the last three categories we're not going to consider because these are accidents, intentional self-harm, and assault. That's not interesting for us because we're interested in illness or sickness. If you have a degeneration of your kidneys, is that an illness? Maybe I'm using the term illness a little loosely there, but these are all bodily problems, not someone attacking you or you killing yourself or you getting assaulted. We're not interested in that because we're trying to compare this with the Karunka virus. So we have here from 2014 to 2018 for malignant neoplasms, it kills about 77,000 to 79,000 or almost 80,000 in 2017. It stays pretty uniform. Then if it's diabetes, it hangs out around 7,000, goes down a little below 7,000. Very uniform. If we look at Alzheimer's, at 6,400, 6,500. Again, it hangs out around 6,500 from 2014 to 2018. Diseases of the heart, that seems to kill a lot more. 51,000, 53,000, 53,000. Cerebrovascular diseases, 13,000, 13,000, 13,000, 13,000, 13,000. Influenza and pneumonia, 6,500, 7,500, about 6,000, 7,000, 8,500 in 2018. Chronic lower respiratory diseases, 11,800, 12,000, 12,000, 12,000, almost 13,000. Close to 13,000 in 2017 and 2018. And then the chronic liver disease and cirrhosis, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, hangs out around 3,500. All of these are pretty normal and regular uniform figures, give or take. And then the last one, nephritis, nephrotic syndrome, and nephrosis, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000. It finishes out around 3,600 in 2018. Okay, so those are all the top leading causes of death in Canada. Now, unfortunately, you can't maybe they have a table like this for the U.S. I went to their website for the U.S. Center for Disease Control, and it's like they have PDFs that you can open, but nothing like this. It's sort of like much more specific information. So if you know of a website where I can go to do this sort of analysis for the U.S., please let me know. But I wasn't able to find anything useful. Like Statistics Canada is a pretty useful website where they can, they have it all laid out for you pretty easily. We can infer that, Canada is kind of like a small version of the U.S. Maybe there's going to be certain differences here and there. There's more Hispanics in the U.S., more blacks in the U.S., and maybe that could change the numbers of illnesses because, there's genetic factors. So, but, generally, give or take, you can think of it loosely as a microcosm of the U.S. Now, maybe you disagree with me there, but this is the best I can provide for now. So, okay, so there we have the numbers. There's a lot of people dying every year, and how old are these people? I mean, it would be a long, boring video to break down each category, so we're just going to have to stick to all ages. So, how many people have died from Coronavírus in Canada so far? I'm going to this website, worldometers.info. This is what I've seen other people using. I don't know if you know of a better source to get this information, then let me know. But this seems to be one of the main sources of information where they have it all broken down. And you can see there's 26 deaths so far in Canada from coronavirus. And the virus has been in the country for, several months now. And there are a total of almost 2,800 cases. Back at the table here, let's look at just influenza and pneumonia. Let's ignore everything else. In the last 2 years, well, excluding 2019, but 2017, 2018, almost 7,400, and then about 8,500 people died in total in Canada from influenza and pneumonia. And I know I could break it down by age here, but let's safely assume that most of those are going to be seniors. I mean, not all of them, but we don't know about specifically in Canada who is dying. They don't tell us that here, as far as I can see. They don't tell us the ages, which is unfortunate. I mean, if you know where to get that information, let me know. But we know generally around the world that this disease is killing mainly seniors, mainly people at least 70 years old or older. A lot of them tend to be 80 years old or older. And yes, there are some groups of people younger than that, but they are very few in relation to the older people that are dying, because older people have some of these other complications. Maybe they have Alzheimer's, or they have heart disease, or they have diabetes. A lot of the people dying, or even the majority, already have pre-existing conditions. Okay, so 26 Canadian deaths from coronavirus as of March 25th, 2020. I'm not trying to say this is proof for either the worst case scenario or the best case scenario. I'm just giving both parties a figure to work with, at least when it comes to Canada. Let's be generous. Rather than say 8,500 or an expected 7,400 people died, let's take the lowest figure in 2016. Let's be generous. We need to have 6,235 people die from coronavirus in Canada in 2020 in order for the fatalities to equal the fatalities from influenza and pneumonia. So if we go back to this number here, 26 deaths, we would expect that number to go up to 6,209 in a generous scenario in order for coronavirus deaths to equal the number of deaths from influenza and pneumonia in Canada in 2016, the lowest figure of the last 5 recorded years. You could look at 8,500, and then you would even need a few thousand more deaths just to equal the level of deaths from influenza and pneumonia. And now people will say, well, coronavirus is not influenza and pneumonia. It's something separate. It's something in addition to these diseases. So you're still going to be having these diseases, but coronavirus will be in addition to that. I mean, that's debatable. I mean, yes, it may be a separate thing, but as we've seen, there is a lot of complications with these other conditions affecting the people who are dying. So the question of whether it is entirely in addition, obviously it's not going to be entirely in addition. There's going to be significant overlap. How much overlap between coronavirus and these other conditions, that's anyone's guess for me. Personally, I would say heavy overlap. But you could take this video if you're a worst case scenario believer, and now you have a number to work with in Canada, at least to put this thing in perspective. I mean, yes, let's take worst case scenario. We're still going to have 6,000 or 8,000 people die from influenza, but in addition, we're going to have, another subset of equal number of people dying from coronavirus. And this is in a country of about 37 million people. U.S. total population is about 327.2 million people in the United States as of 2018. They have 785 deaths from Corunca out of 327 million people. And again, the black pillars will say, well, we're just in the beginning and it's going to spike. Okay, well, fair enough. So what would you need it to spike to in order for this to be more than the influenza deaths? I don't know, but this is from Kiro. I don't know. This seems to be a news site. Seems to be a mainstream news site. Okay, I'm just saying, you can't totally trust the mainstream news, but I don't see why they would be fudging a number like this. They're saying that in the U.S., 12,000 to 61,000 deaths per year from the flu. That's a large margin there. Again, let's be generous to the black pillars that this is going to be the worst thing. So let's just say 12,000 deaths per year from the flu. Okay, so then we have 785 deaths in the U.S. from Corunca. And again, you could be saying, well, this is in addition. Maybe it's in addition, but it's probably a heavy overlap. And I'm not even factoring in the huge range, like up to 61,000. If I did 61, even if I did 40,000 deaths from the flu, in a worser scenario, we have 785 deaths in the U.S. Again, maybe it's going to spike. I mean, deaths are continuing to increase. I guess you could say the deaths are increasing exponentially. If you look here, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of looking exponential, but we're going to need it to go, whoa, we're going to need that pretty soon. We're going to need it, we're going to know very soon whether this is going exponentially. So again, I could be wrong in my optimism. The doomsayers could be right, but then, oh, look at the daily cases. Oh, that's not going exponential. That's not going exponential. Oh, that's not good news for the doomsayers. What about Canada? I should have looked at this earlier. Okay, Canada. Okay, Canada. Oh, look at the daily new cases in Canada. First it went down, then it spiked, and then it's at 701. So again, that's not exponential over the last few days, but we'll see. Maybe it'll keep going up. But then what about the deaths in Canada? Oh, well, that's not looking exponential. In fact, it's not looking exponential for some days now. It's not, in fact, I don't really see any, I see more of a linear thing. Yeah, I'm not seeing it in Canada in the total deaths. Here you can see it in a bar graph. It spiked on March 21st. It's already the 25th of March. So these are each bar represents the number of people dying per day or on those days. Okay, I mean, there's still some reason you could see exponential in the US, but not in Canada so far. But just to conclude, now I tried to find out information about the testing of the coronavirus. How do they diagnose it? I Google, I spend over an hour looking at different websites. It's not actually that easy to see what's going on. Feel free to educate me if I get any of this wrong. But based on what I was reading, there's different ways of testing for it, but there's one main test that they do to diagnose whether you have the virus in your system or whether you do not. And this information is available from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And if you go to their website, it's the coronavirus. If you go down just a little bit here, they're talking about testing. C.D.C. 2019, this one, real-time RT-PCR diagnostic panel instructions. And it brings you to this document. This document, C.D.C. 2019 novel coronavirus real-time RT-PCR diagnostic panel. Instructions for use. For in vitro diagnostic, that means in a test tube. It's very useful right at the beginning. I'm just going to quickly skim over this paragraph here, but the information we're looking for is in this paragraph, the second paragraph. But just to give you some context here, it's saying that blah 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 novel coronavirus diagnostic panel real-time test intended for the qualitative detection of nucleic acid in upper and lower respiratory specimens from all these different parts in your body where they can get tested, collected from individuals who meet the criteria. For example, the clinical signs and symptoms associated with this infection, blah, blah, blah. Testing in the U.S. is limited to laboratory certified. Okay, so the key paragraph is here. Everyone pay attention to this paragraph. Really just these sentences. Results are for the identification of 2019 nCoV RNA. The 2019 nCoV RNA is generally detectable in upper and lower respiratory specimens during infection. Positive results are indicative of active infection with the CoV, but do not rule out bacterial infection or co-infection with other viruses. The agent detected may not be the definite cause of disease. Let me repeat that. Positive results are indicative of active infection with the Carunca, but this does not rule out bacterial infection or co-infection with other viruses, and the agent detected may not be the definite cause of disease. This is straight, practically at the very beginning of this document from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention about their main test for Carunca V. Now again, correct me if I'm wrong, and this is not the main Carunca V test. Okay, I'm willing to be corrected, but here we have it right here. The test is just going to show you whether they found some of the virus in your system. The conclusion is not so weighty in terms of how much of the virus is in your system. How fast is it multiplying? Is it actually making this person ill, or is it something else making the person ill? They don't know. Keep that in mind when you see all these statistics of 2,800 cases in Canada, about 55,000 cases in the U.S., based apparently on this information that they can't even tell the significance of finding this virus in your system. This is almost legalese. This is almost like they put that in there to cover their ass. Why would they do that? Aren't these people looking out for us? Doesn't the C.D.C. care about humans? And they wouldn't take their directions from higher up for any nefarious reasons. Oh, no, of course not. Sorry to give my own bias in there. I was trying to keep this kind of a neutral video. Obviously, I have my bias, but now we have the figures. So whatever, maybe disagree with all that stuff. But at least you have some figures to work with. We're going to need many, many thousands more people to die for this to be equal to the influenza deaths in the U.S. Just influenza. I'm not looking at any of the other diseases. I'm not looking at heart disease. Not looking at cancer, all that other stuff. And then, yes, of course, this is in addition to all of that. It's not, it's a separate thing. We're just going to have more total deaths. I mean, again, that's debatable. That's very debatable. There's going to be heavy overlap. Hasta luego, amigos.